Today we're going to be talking about the music in one of my favorite childhood movies of all time. Minty has already done 2 videos about this movie, so I'll let him explain.
Released in 1986, Flight of the Navigator tells the story of 12-year-old David, who lives in 1978, who mysteriously arrives in 1986, where NASA want to discover the secrets of what happened to David, where he discovers a spaceship that's been telepathically calling out for him, and meets the ship's controller Max, where a fun and exciting spaceship adventure takes place. In this movie that has become a beloved cult classic.
How important was music to the film?
Oh, I think music was greatly important.
I think Alan Silvestri did a fantastic job.
The score for Flight of the Navigator was provided by movie composing legend Alan Silvestri. Just 1 year earlier, Silvestri struck gold with composing music for Back to the Future, so naturally he was in demand at the time. And some of his music in Flight of the Navigator sounds great and has a sense of wonderment. But sadly to me, in my own humble opinion of course, some of his music sounds a bit too synthesized and pop for my likings, and sounds aged now compared to his other more timeless scores.
When you look at the resume of Alan Silvestri, some of the music of Flight of the Navigator does kind of pale in comparison, especially when you consider the progressive sound of the 1980s. While there may be a niche of retro fans out there who love the sound, most people turn away from it.
This is just an opinion, but some of the more funky upbeat tunes sound more like a 1980s aerobicizing video. This could be because in Back to the Future he was using an orchestra, whereas in Flight of the Navigator the music was scored electronically.
It was a short schedule. We didn't have time or budget to do a big orchestra, and Alan was willing to do it all with synthesizers. And so we thought, since it's a space movie, why not use synthesizers? So I think it was all synth. He's done all the Marvel movies now, right?
Yes.
And he has an orchestra.
When you look at the credits, it reflects that all the original music was composed and performed using the Synclavier digital music system, and special effects were designed and composed using the Akai 5900 digital sampler. This was an obvious typo for the bigger brother to the S950.
Now, FM sounds had never been heard before outside of research labs like at Stanford University, so these were crazy new sounds.
As for the main theme played at the start of the movie, well, to me, it just sounds, well, weird.
The introduction of the song is pretty misleading, and once the music kicks in, you begin to realize that it is something else entirely. I would have to agree with Minty here, and the main theme to Flight of the Navigator definitely stands out in contrast to the rest of the music. If one were to approach this music and scene with no context, you would swear that it's an 80s movie about the sport of dog frisbee. However, like the movie itself, this tune has become a cult classic, with a few people covering their own rendition. As you could tell, some people really enjoy this piece of music, and now that you've heard it, it will likely get stuck in your head like it did Lil Tussin over here.
When the music for Flight of the Navigator works, it works very well. But when it doesn't work too well, it doesn't.
One of my favorite scenes is when he's flying around listening to the Beach Boys.
We had to have that song, and we knew that early on. We were afraid we wouldn't be able to afford it. Disney wasn't sure they wanted to pay for it. Randall and I kept leaning on them, and they gave us the right to that.
While this Beach Boys song was in the movie, it wasn't on the soundtrack. But there's another song that had a lot of people wondering about.
Gotta get directions. Twisted Sister stuff Carolyn was talking about.
Twisted Sister.
Never heard of her.
It's a hymn.
Actually, it's a them, is what she follows up by saying. And even though Twisted Sister is mentioned twice in this movie, there is seemingly no music from them. As a matter of fact, Joey Kramer's line on the ship was ad-libbed. But this is what Twisted Sister's music sounds like in comparison. As with a lot of movies, the original soundtrack only contains the pieces from the movie's music composer, leaving the rest to the music supervisor. And even though the songs are listed in the credits, there are certainly inconsistencies that raise questions, especially when people loop this song and post it up with the Twisted Sister logo. Between the ad-lib and stuff like this floating around, it's pretty easy to assume how so many people would confuse this song. There are some people who think that it sounds a lot like Oingo Boingo, which is right up their alley, but they were having a little moment of theirs in the mainstream as well. When you dig into the credits, there are a few names that help provide a bit of answers when you look them up. As a matter of fact, digging into the comment section helps confirm another piece of the puzzle that a lot of us have been missing. The song Trapped in My Mind that is exclusively in Flight of the Navigator was David Catay sampling The Cure. Now this doesn't explain the lyrics, however, which are completely different, but it does help explain why nobody has heard it since.
Come on!
Hi! You wouldn't happen to know the way to Fort Lauderdale, would you?
Try to make your directions clear because we get lost easy.
What?
Hey! Thanks for nothing! Were those geeks, David?
Yes, Max. Those were geeks.
There's another story here that I wanted to mention regarding the music, but probably not in the way that you're thinking.
Well, there is something I've learned of the virtues I've earned. What's given free will be returned when love has taken over.
This is from a documentary called Life After the Navigator that goes through exactly what happened to Joey Kramer after the movie, where he's at now, and what helped lead him to this guitar.
I got to just do the zen of laundry and, folding clothes, but also I could sit down here and I could read or write, and I wrote a lot of songs down here, and there's fairly, there's a little bit of an echo, like decent acoustics, so I would sit down and sometimes bring a guitar down and play or whatever, stuff like that while I was working. Sometimes I think, if I had stayed in movies, I would have, made $1 million or whatever it was. At the same time, the way my trajectory went, had I moved to LA by myself, unless I had a really good mentor or someone around, I'm pretty sure that I would probably be dead by now.
Like I said at the beginning, Flight of the Navigator is one of my favorite childhood movies of all time, and still to this very day. The glue that holds this movie together is the lead character whose journey throughout the movie and beyond has led him to discovering this great music of his own.
This movie had a lot of things in it that were new for the time. And I think when you add all of those different elements, the puppetry, Joey particularly, the ship itself, it became something larger than something we even imagined. And regardless of the box office outcome of a movie like that tends to continue to play and play.
So I just wanted to share a little bit of this with you guys and let you guys know what's out there for those who are unaware. But this was just such a significant impact, and while my son and I were watching it, the immediate impact that it has made on him has had me reflecting on the reasons why I enjoy this so much, and going through it, it's all about the music, and that's what this channel is about, so I figured I'd share it with you guys, and I did sample some stuff, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then. Take care, y'all.